Hello everybody, Olatunji here, welcoming you to GGM's Associate channel, The Law and its Sources. Under Business Law today, we want to look at the law and its sources. Every nation has the source of their existing laws, even including the business law. And I would like us to hold a thought for a moment because it's going to be very useful along the line in this discourse. Let us assume that there is a vehicle, probably a car, without a braking system. Let us hold it for a moment as we look at the definition of the law. We are going to be looking at the definition of the law. We are going to be looking at the purpose or purposes of law. We are going to be looking at the sources of the law, and hereafter we'll continue to look at in details the sources, various sources of law, introducing ourselves to the law, and we are going to be looking at the definition as defined by Sir John Williams Salmond. Do we have universal definition of law? We are going to examine it, whether there is a universal definition of law or not. We are going to look at it. As we continue, already this is the breakdown of the syllabus. As we can see, let me widen it for us to look at. And we're already introducing ourselves. So now we are under the legal and the court system, but now we are looking at the definition of law and sources of law. We are going to look at the partnership, company and insolvency law, the criminal law, the law of commerce, transaction, employment law, the law of trust and administration of estate, and alternative dispute resolution mechanism, among many other things. So the totality of our 17 chapters in the syllabus can be summarized under this category that we are looking at. So we go into the business of the day, the meaning of law. What can we say law really is? What is law? Law actually has no universal definition. No universal definition for law, but nevertheless, we can define law as the principle recognized by a state, by a nation, or by a country. So it's a recognized principle by the states in the administration of justice. Law can be defined as principles recognized, acceptable, and accepted by the states in which they want to govern themselves. So that is what we can say administration and the definition of law really is. And that definition is according to Sir John Williams Salmond actually. So what are principles? Principles actually supposed to be universal, generally acceptable, but because nations differ from nations, so the universality of the principle of law, of justice, of equity, the spirit of law is there, one thing, but the real definition of what law should be is multifaceted. But in the definition, one of the principal word that we must know is it must be recognized. And in recognizing, it means that is generally accepted, communicated to the citizenry to govern the administration of justice. So what are the sources and purposes of law? Let us look at the purpose first, then we look at the sources of law. Principally, the purpose of law is for social control, social order. Don't forget, when I started, I said we should hold a thought. Hold the thought as regards a vehicle without braking system. So law is to ensure control, societal control, business control, environmental control, and the like. Maybe the word control is a bit harsh and the like, but it connotes that governance, administration will be supported based on these recognized principles. So therefore, the purpose of law is to ensure we have a yardstick of governing our countries, our societies, our business environment, and the like. Having known the definition according to Sir John William Salmond and the purpose of the law, what are the sources of law? Primarily, every nation will have their customary law. Basically, that is what is generally acceptable among the people of a country. By the way, if you are just joining us or yet to subscribe to our channel, please go and subscribe, like, so that we can build this community together. So every nation has a customary law generally accepted among a folk, a kindred, a society. But apart from that, especially in the not too far recent past, majority of countries were colonized, whether by England or English, the French, and the like. And these countries that colonized have their customary law, and when they export it, it becomes English law. That is the law of England. So therefore, basically we can say to us we have the English law because we were colonized by the British people, England, and also we have customary law. So we have customary law and English law. So when we are now talking about the customary law and the English law, what are other laws that they could be subdivided into? So the English law has its common law, the doctrine of equity, and the statute of general application. The common law that is common to the people, the doctrine of equity, and statute of general application. And now when we are now talking about ourselves, we have predominantly customary law that we can now legislate on. So we have the indigenous legislation. We have the indigenous legislation. So under our indigenous legislation, we have our business laws too, the law that governs so many other aspects of our lives. We have what we can call the case law or the judicial precedent, that is established cases that we can use as yardstick for other cases that are yet to come. Then we have international law. The international law will be talking about the international treaties, the international convention, and international protocol. So these laws enable us to relate externally with other community of nations. So we've been able to define what law is, and we said that there's no general universal definition for the word called law, but according to Sir Williams John Salmond, we can say and pick some critical words that law can be defined as principle recognized and applied by a state in administration and governance of themselves, or administration of justice. Purposes of law basically is for social control, is for social order, to put ourselves together and have something as standard that can guide our behaviors. Basic sources of law: we have the customary, we have the English law. And when we are talking about the English law, it comes with the doctrine of equity, the common law, and the statute of general application. When we are talking about our internal legislation of our customary law, we'll be talking about the case law, judicial precedents, and we also have the international law, talking about the international treaties we have with other nations, conventions, and international protocols. As a bonus, other sources of law that we can talk about is the law report, that is those cases that have been compiled together, the law textbooks that we can read, and other learned works. These are sources of law that we can talk about. Then we are going to be looking at in details, what is common law, what is doctrine of equity, what is statutes of general application, what are customary laws, what are judicial precedent laws or case laws. We are going to be looking at the hierarchy of the courts, the international treaties, the international law, what are legislation processes that we must follow. We are going to be looking at the division of legislative powers between the federal, the states, and the local and the municipal law are going to be looked at. From G. James Associate channel, if you are yet to subscribe, please go and subscribe, like us, click the notification button. We are value to life, we are value to your businesses. So next we'll be talking about in details the common law, doctrine of equity, statute of general application. We're going to be looking at the hierarchy of courts, judicial precedents. We're going to be looking at legislations and legislative processes, the division of power between the federal, the states, and the municipal or the local government.